We were discussing earlier the strong LibDem performance in parts of England, certainly, where we were looking at the new authority in Somerset. We were having a look there at the count in Taunton. Quick reminder before I talk to the party leader, Sir Ed Davey, that the Somerset result looked like this, and there are 8 seats yet to declare, 60 to the Lib Dems, 33 to the Tories, 56 needed for a majority, so clearly it's a Lib Dem controlled new authority there. And if we look at the change, well, this is notional because, of course, it's a new authority. It's not based on actual comparisons with directly comparable previous wards. 36 up for the Lib Dems and 33 down for the Conservatives. So let's go to Taunton, and Sir Ed Davey is there for us. Ed, good afternoon. Congratulations on the results where you've done very well. What led to it?
Well, thank you very much, Hugh. We have done really well across the country. I'm here in Somerset, where we've taken control of the council. And when I canvassed across the country, met lots of people, and the biggest issue across the country was the cost of living emergency. You know, millions of families and pensioners are really struggling, and the Conservative government was not doing anything near enough to help those people. And Liberal Democrats were saying, look, you've got to give them a tax cut, a cut in VAT worth £600 to the average family. That's the sort of positive measure that the Liberal Democrats were arguing for. And I'm afraid the Conservatives were just taking people for granted. That's what we heard.
When you look at the kind of campaign that you've been fighting there, and indeed in other parts of the south of England, how does it work in terms of your own issues and then personality? How much did you focus, for example, on Boris Johnson as a leader and his values as Prime Minister, or indeed on your own policies to do with local areas such as Somerset and the issues that are relevant to people there? They'll include the cost of living, but other things as well. How did that campaign divide?
Well, if you look at the leaflets that Liberal Democrats were putting out across the country, they normally focus on local issues. We're community politicians. If you elect a Liberal Democrat councillor, you elect a strong local champion who fight for you, your family and your community. That's exactly what people get when they vote Liberal Democrats. So we were focusing on many local issues. Yes, the cost of living has got a national element, of course, to it. The environment's always big for the Liberal Democrats, and we've been pointing out in Parliament and on our leaflets the fact that the Conservatives were letting the water utilities get away with pumping filthy raw sewage into our rivers and lakes, and that's just not acceptable. So we've been standing up for people, for their communities, offering them a fair deal, and that's what we've been talking about. Of course, back in the Westminster bubble, there's been the story of Partygate and the appalling behaviour of the Prime Minister, law-breaking and the lies and the sleaze and scandal of the Conservative MPs. That obviously was on some people's minds, but we weren't campaigning on that. We were campaigning on the issues that mattered to people: the cost of living, the NHS, the environment.
Ed, it's Vicky Young here in the studio, and you've obviously had some real big successes, particularly in some of those areas like Somerset, which of course were strongholds for the Liberal Democrats for many years. And you will be looking to the next general election. You know, we know that there's a by-election coming up in Devon near where you are. You've been in Wimbledon today. You're looking at parliamentary seats, of course. But ultimately, even if you do well next time round, you know you can't do enough to form the next government. It looks on these projections that Labour can't do it on their own either. And of course, the inevitable question, is there some kind of agreement between the two of you about what you would do, given you both want to oust the Conservatives?
No, there isn't. I, as Liberal Democrat leader, am focusing on winning more Liberal Democrat council seats and more members of Parliament. What was really interesting, the results for the Liberal Democrats last night, was in seats that we need to take from the Conservatives. Here in Taunton, for example, but in places like Wimbledon, where I was earlier. These are key seats for the Liberal Democrats next election, which I believe we can win. And Boris Johnson out of Downing Street, to get the Conservatives out of power, all the arithmetic shows we need a strong Liberal Democrat performance. And there are seats across the country, you know, up in the north like Cheadle and Hazel Grove, Harrogate, lots of places where Liberal Democrats are the only people who can beat the sitting Conservative MP. And if we do, we can oust the Conservatives from government. That's my focus.
Yeah, you oust him from government. That's what you want to achieve. But then what? That's what voters will want to know, of course.
Well, if you vote for Liberal Democrats, you get Liberal Democrat people argue for Liberal Democrat policies, our priorities, whether they're trying to help people on the cost of living, our proposal for a tax cut, for example, our proposals to help more vulnerable families and pensioners by taking money directly off their energy bills, our proposals to clean up our environment, our proposal for the NHS and care. These are the issues that really matter to people, Vicky. There will be what we'll focus on before the election and after the election.
Ed, thank you very much for joining us. The clock's slightly against us, but once again, congratulations to you and the team on where you've done well, and good of you to bring along a band of supporters as well to support you in the interview, which is stage management of an exceptional kind.
They're a great. Hugh, they're a great band here in Somerset, but in Woking, I can tell you we have taken control of Woking. So it looks like we might have won 4 councils: Hull off Labour in the north, Westmoreland and Furness in the north, Woking in Surrey, and of course Somerset.
Before you get overexcited, Ed, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Sir Ed Davey there with his team in Taunton, having notched up that victory there in the new authority in Somerset.